one thing that I learned was that there are a variety of positions that I held, first by different denominations within the Christian setup, and secondly also even within the different denominations that we do have lots of sub acts that people do that relate to the issues of food security as well as climate change. So I would want to actually just frame the position that I'm going to take for today, as I just give a general framework of the position of the Christian as I have experienced it. When I spoke to Reverend Berry, we agreed that I would also take into consideration my experiences as a member of my own faith, and I would want to state maybe at this point in time that I belong to the Reformed faith in the Christian community, and most of my personal sort of view would also be so influenced by the Reformed theology. So my presentation would be basically focused on that. I'm wondering, Reverend Berry, whether you have that presentation where I have just put in a few notes that will guide me as I make my presentation.
Unfortunately, it seems to have not arrived. Now, I know that you said you sent it to me this morning, but I'm not finding it in my, if I can share the, or ask Philippine to give you the possibility to share your screen, do you think that can work?
Yeah, maybe we'll try that.
Thank you. Philippine,
Okay.
can you do that for us?
Yes, I'm just trying to allow that. I'd have to make him a co-host. It's fine.
That's perfect. Thank you so much.
I've given him access.
Thank you, Gabriel. Are you able to see that now and share your screen with us?
Let me try again.
Yes, we can see. Yes.
All right. Oh,
you
thank
can
you
make,
very much. Yes,
you're welcome.
My starting point will be the basis of our faith, or the basis of the Christian faith, and maybe the basis of the Reformed faith, where we actually take it to say, when all is said and done, when we are dealing with any issue on the Christian perspective, we then refer to the Bible and the Bible alone. And in this case, I would actually go on to use the Latin word, the sola scriptura, to say this is our point of departure in terms of looking at the issues that we are looking at right now, specifically looking at the issues of food security and climate change. And since I have a short space of time, I would also focus mainly on the issues that have to do with a few aspects of the food security issues. Just a quick definition, which I used in terms of, for the sake of this presentation, I took a definition that says food security is the availability at all times of adequate world food supplies of basic foodstuffs to sustain the expansion of food consumption and to offset fluctuations in production and prices. This is from the United Nations Conference of 1975, but I still feel maybe the aspect that it touches are also aspects that we should be looking at and be focusing on when we're looking at the Christian perspective on food security. I also noted maybe the subsequent definition, which also says a situation that exists when people at all times have physical, social, and economic access to sufficient and nutritious food that meets the dietary needs and food preferences and health. With all this, we are trying to focus on the issue that food security for all should be a position where accessibility and availability are things that we should be worried about as Christians and maybe even as people of faith. And also, having read diverse Christian material on social justice and social teachings, I would say most of the definitions on food security can arguably be synthesized by the part of the Lord's Prayer, and that is, according to the Bible, Matthew 6 on verse 14, where the Lord actually says, give us, when he was teaching on prayer, when he said, give us this day our daily bread, which to me then summarizes the fact that as Christians, we should follow the example of Christ when he said we should have our daily needs met as far as food is concerned. And when Christ is talking of the daily needs or the daily bread, he's looking at availability. He is also concretizing the issue of accessibility. And that whole statement also embodies the fact that it is something that we should be looking at on a daily basis, and that all people at all times should have adequate food and to have it quite accessible to all of us at all times. And we thank the Lord for that. Looking at climate change, I would want to pick out on Stephen Jackson, the professor emeritus at Botany University in Wyoming, who actually defined climate change as the periodic modification of the Earth's climate, and also about the result as a result of changes in the atmosphere, as well as, sorry about that. Climate change, periodic modifications of the Earth's climate brought about as a result of changes in the atmosphere, as well as interactions between the atmosphere and the various other geologic, chemical, biological, and geographic factors within the Earth system. And when I'm looking at the geographic factors within the Earth system, this is where we would then put in the relationship that the human race has with the Earth system, and therefore the effect and impact that the human race would have on the climate change. Moving on, the other part of the definition that I would want us also to take note of.
I think that we might have just lost Gabriel. Can anybody else, is he still in the room, or has he left us completely?
I think you might be right, Barry. I think he might have fallen off. I fell off just a minute ago. This is the joy of Zoom.
The joy of Zoom, indeed. And what a pity, because that was such
he definitely fell off.
He definitely fell off. We also do know that as Gabriel is in Zimbabwe, he is subject to unexpected power cuts from time to time that could last for quite a while. So that's really unfortunate, but he has already given us quite a bit of food for thought there. So I'm going to, I think, move on, and if we have the opportunity a little bit later, if he is able to reconnect with us, then we will then we'll go back to him and put him back on the platform, if that's okay. So before I introduce my next speaker, I'm going to just ask those of you who have had a chance, if you've to have actually read the letter that SAFC recently sent, an open letter to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And it was all about food security, basically, because it spoke about the way we treat, for instance, the effect that genetically modified seeds, for instance, would have on vulnerable communities, the legalities around it, the way people who are vulnerable already are severely more compromised by some of the work that the Gates Foundation is promoting and supporting. So I would just like to remind you about that letter, because as faith leaders, I really do invite you to go and have a look. And I'm going to ask Philippine to put the link into the chat so that you can have the opportunity to sign that letter as a member of a faith community, as a leader of a faith community, if you have not already signed it. But so not to distract us further from the work at hand and from the conversation at hand, I'm going to ask Tahira Matia, who has a long time relationship with SAFC, is a former chairperson of the board, and is also the national. I'm not quite sure how to actually put this, Tahira. You'll have to correct me, but Tahira is the national representative for the Baha'i community and in South Africa. So we are really honored to have you, Tahira, to bring your perspective, your Baha'i perspective on food security and climate change. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Bidi. I'm feeling like I'm home again. I'm seeing all the wonderful faces and hearing the beautiful voices, and obviously very much here to learn with my wonderful faith colleagues in this important conversation. I also just want to apologize. I'm feeling rather cold. I'm a bit unwell today. It just sort of happened suddenly yesterday. I just wasn't feeling my best. I also couldn't participate properly in my own devotional that I've been hosting now for the period of the pandemic, and we so missed you there also last night, Berry, because you join us from time to time. So I do apologize. I don't even feel like I'm dressed properly for this occasion. I'm feeling quite cold. So I'm sitting here all snug in my little warm room. And yes, so this is my situation. And my voice is a little bit hoarse. I've been trying to drink the rooibos tea and the honey, and it has given some relief. So I'm thankful. I also express gratitude to the first speaker, because it was lovely to take a look at the definitions that is put on the screen for us. But I think let me do first things first. First, I have given you my presentation, but I also have it on my laptop here. So I'm quite happy to speak to it as it is on my screen. The first thing I need to do is to really express the loving greetings of the Baha'i community that we bring to this discussion here. And we really, really thank SAFC as a structure in society, a multi-faith structure in society, for doing this hard work. This is very hard work. And for providing these enabling spaces for us to have these critical conversations. But I suppose from myself personally, I'm also yearning to see that we follow these dialogues and these conversations with the necessary social action that can assist us to progress as a human family. So in thinking about this presentation in terms of the introductory comments, I thought, given any topic, whether it is food security and climate justice in this case, the Baha'i comment to any topic would always be that the Baha'i perspective on any topic would always relate to worldview and paradigm. And so on this topic, we would be very forthright in saying that our vision to this topic and all related topics is always world embracing. We see ourselves as people and as a faith community, as family, the unit of family, as communities. We are all part of one world. And we are one people of the planet with our beautiful diversity, all living in this one space that God has created for us. So with any issue, any challenge that we are facing as a society, it is always important for us to hold fast onto that vision and to have this unity in the discourse and the unity in the social action as a hallmark feature in terms of the approach that we take. So we are united with everybody else in this forum, outside of this forum, because we are in this together. So it is highly regrettable that we find ourselves in this situation where we now have to talk about food security and climate justice. Because if we, wind back, roll back in time, we will see that as a human family, we have contributed to a large extent to the situation that we find ourselves in, the definitions that have been already placed on the screen for us to reflect upon. So in that context, for us as the Baha'i community, it means globally we're in it together. So at the global level, we have to begin to find the solutions. We have to address the challenges. And then locally, as Baha'i families, as Baha'i individuals, as Baha'i institutions, as Baha'is on our continents, as Baha'is in the global structures, because in all these levels, the Baha'is are participating in the discourse. A further aspect to this manner of operating as a Baha'i community is we want to pronounce very vociferously the harmony that we promote between science and religion. And I say this because we still have climate change denialists. And so from our faith perspective, there is no denial. In fact, we are promoting that science and religion should harmoniously take on these challenges, and that within the faith sector and within the science sector, we begin to move closer to each other in addressing these very important humanitarian issues. This topic has become a humanitarian matter. In terms of the Baha'i history, one of the central figures of the Baha'i faith, just to show the importance of the topic, Abdul Baha, the center of the covenant and the son of the founder of the Baha'i faith, Abbas Effendi, actually received a knighthood for food provision and food security in very, very difficult times. And that's well documented on my next point, which is the Baha'i community has come together some 40 years ago together and formed the International Environment Forum, a Baha'i-inspired organization, to begin to deal with some of these challenges that we are facing as a human family. So amongst this set of topics that's discussed in the International Environment Forum would be climate change, which is a top issue, and of course, related to climate change is the need for climate justice. One of the important things that the Baha'is are promoting in all their documents at the moment is this need to act locally and to be exemplary on the issue of food security. And one of the big things that we have taken on is to design community building activities, which is devotional spaces, child education spaces that's open to everyone, junior youth spaces that's open to all junior youth wherever Baha'is find themselves, and study circles. And woven into all of these community building activities, we have brought in the issues of the environment and the need to act on it, the need to act locally, and the need to build our community stronger, not only on the discourse, but also on the social action. So just a quick search in terms of, what is being said outside of the Baha'i faith on food security. One sees very short definitions such as the state of having reliable access to a sufficient quantity of affordable, nutritious food. Now, if anything, the COVID-19 pandemic has clearly exposed a lot of cracks in the way that society operates. And we saw here in the Western Cape, when our government called the interfaith leaders together, we saw how even well-resourced structures in government openly said they didn't have a clue how to do this, and they were now turning to the faith community to assist with the simple thing of distributing food parcels. So we saw with the pandemic this need for food, and how in the midst of all of that, the poor will always suffer the most, and we quickly needed to mobilize ourselves, pull our resources together, and even assist our government. But we also see with any definition around food security these days, we also see quickly the next comment that comes out of most documentation, that food security has dramatically declined in many, many, many countries. So in terms of climate justice and food security, I would like to just read one of the things that I've put on one of the slides. That climate change is leading to more intense weather events, such as floods and droughts, and will likely impact agricultural production all over the world. And here are some alarming figures. It says that even though the world community has agreed in the Sustainable Development Goals to end hunger and malnutrition in all its forms by 2030, the number of chronically undernourished people has increased from 775 million in 2014 to 821 million in 2017. These are alarming figures, and that in itself should be spurring us into action. Now, I also just want to read that in the most holy book of the Baha'i faith, the Kitab-i-Aqdas, which is the book of laws, on the website of the International Environment Forum, the authors Paul Hanley, Dr. Arthur Dahl, King Navi, and Gary Rausch, and Robert White, they have reminded the Baha'i community that Baha'u'llah described agriculture as a vital and important matter that was foremost amongst the principles conducive to the advancement of mankind and to the reconstruction of the world. This is from the tablets of Baha'u'llah, revealed after the Kitab-i-Aqdas, pages 90 and 89. And then they point out to the Baha'i community, yet current agricultural policy often prioritizes yield and profit over health, sustainability, and socio-cultural features of rural communities, while the poor struggle to even feed themselves, and climate change makes farming increasingly unpredictable. These and other factors threaten food security. In the Baha'i perspective on agriculture and food, we will examine the teachings of the Baha'i faith on agriculture, food, and rural development, as these relate to the teachings of the contemporary Baha'i, contemporary public discourse on these three issues. So when I reflect on that as a member of the Baha'i community, here are some other important related issues to it, that it is, and this is a question that, an aspect of the food parcels that bothered me during the COVID-19 pandemic relief responses. Because I looked at some of the food in the food parcels, and I didn't believe that that was the best quality food. I didn't believe that that was the right amount that people should receive, etc. So I posed the question then to us as a group. When we want to talk about food security, and when we want to highlight these disparities in the world, I think there are some very, very fundamental aspects that we don't need only to discuss, but it becomes the action part, it becomes the doing part. We need to look at nutritious food. We need to understand what is nutritious. We need also to understand what is enough, because on the other side of the scale, we also have overconsumption. We have obesity in the world. So from the Baha'i perspective, moderation and balance in everything that we do, including what we eat and what we fill our bodies with, and how we deal with food consumption, is also a very important part of the discourse. In fact, I'm going to skip. I had some slides which showed the severity of climate change, but I'm going to skip those for now. They are very graphic slides of where we are in climate change and just how drastic the situation is in terms of global warming. I will just read a summary that we are rapidly becoming a hothouse. Africa, certainly South Africa, is in the midst of that if we look at the graphs. However, from the Baha'i teachings, Baha'u'llah has written to the Baha'is that for our own interest and for the health of the planet, we are advised a vegetarian lifestyle. We are advised to join hands with others in the world, not to be arrogant, to be humble, to join hands with others in the world, to learn more about that lifestyle, to learn more about good nutrition, to learn more how we make all of that available to every person on the planet. I thought also it was important for me to perhaps share on health and healing a direct quotation. It says, it is therefore evident that it is possible to cure by foods, ailments and fruits. But as today the science of medicine is imperfect, this fact is not yet fully grasped. When the science of medicine reaches perfection, treatment will be given by foods, ailments, fragrant fruits, and vegetables, and by various waters, hot and cold in temperature. We are told the following: while the world of nature stands in need of development, man's approach to such development must be tempered by moderation. a commitment to protecting the heritage of future generations, an awareness of the sanctity of nature that pervades the writings of the Baha'i faith. For example, Baha'u'llah states, "Blessed is the spot and the house and the place and the city and the heart and the mountain and the refuge and the cave and the valley and the land and the sea and the island and the meadow where mention of God hath been made and his praise glorified." I take that to mean that we should treat all the space that is given to us with holiness, with sanctity, to be respectful of what has been granted to us. Baha'u'llah states that special regard must be paid to agriculture. He characterizes it as an activity which is conducive to the advancement of mankind. And Abdul Baha asserts that the fundamental basis of the community is agriculture, tillage of the soil. In relation to the economic and social development of the nations, the Universal House of Justice, which is the supreme administrative body of the Baha'i faith, underlines the importance of agriculture and the preservation of ecological balance of the world. We have many compilations. One compilation is just on climate change and several others on agriculture and health and healing. And so I want to just humbly, very, very humbly say, we don't profess to have any of the answers. We do know that we have been given critical, very, very critical and fundamental guidance. Our exhortations on kindness to animals, our exhortation to live a life of enough, our exhortation in understanding that one nutritious meal is what we need for our daily living, and our understanding that we need to honor the earth and live in moderation, in balance. These are some of the insights that I very humbly, very, very humbly bring into the conversation, and with a promise, to continue this learning and to take this into my personal life, which I have. My family no longer eats red meat, and we reject other forms of meat based on these exhortations from the Baha'i writings and based on the need to reverse what has happened over the centuries of the kind of farming and the kind of lifestyle that we, the people of the planet, have perpetuated into the century. And we are positioning ourselves with humility to hold hands with others, to learn more about good ways of farming. I myself, I've turned my garden into a vegetable garden, and trying to be exemplary and trying to take that same message in the research that I do with the schools. So I'm trying to bring an interconnected approach and making myself responsible for the change, not just to talk about the change, and to be honest and to say it was hard to give up some of the things. It is hard to be a family only using one car because we want to reduce the carbon emissions. So with much humility, I bring just these very few points. We have numerous compilations. I want to thank the International Environmental Forum, which is a Baha'i-inspired forum, for all the work that it has done in the discourse and all the projects that it has engaged in to motivate the Baha'i community to join hands with others and to be part of the change and to make food security and climate justice a reality for the planet. I thank SAFC very much for the opportunity, and I know I've been out of circulation in terms of serving on the board and being visibly present, but to reassure SAFC that behind the scenes, a lot of the discourse work has continued since the time I stepped off the board. I thank each one of you very, very much for this opportunity.
Tahira, thank you. What a thought-provoking presentation you've given us. Indeed, what is it that constitutes food these days, and what is enough? Very, very important and far-reaching questions. So I think we should move on to our next speaker now. Our final official speaker is Nazir Sonde. Now, Nazir is a farmer and has for many, many years been an activist in the I think Philippi horticultural area, and I think is most well known, for me certainly, his efforts to protect the Cape Flats aquifer that's really the one issue that brought Nazir to my attention first of all. That was some years ago, and I believe that the fight continues. But Nazir, it's such a pleasure and an honor to have you with us, to bring to us your expertise and what your Muslim faith says about food security and climate change. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Reverend Berry, for the wonderful words. And thank you for the opportunity to say a few words here in this very important dialogue. I'm by no means an Islamic scholar, qualified to speak here actually, but my faith and the Islamic tradition that I was lucky to be born in has been the invisible hand, really, that guided me in the work of the PHA Food and Farming campaign over the last 12 years. And I would like to share some of these Islamic traditions with regard to food security and climate justice with everyone here. So what does Islam say about food security? But before we go there, I think I need to express some horrifying statistics. Well, just one horrifying statistic, and it's enough really to set the tone for what challenges lay ahead for us. In a groundbreaking work in 2012, the African Food Network did a study of 1,000 households in the city, and these households were in Ocean View, Philippi, and Kailicha, and found that 80% of these households are food insecure. In other words, many of our fellow citizens in the city go to bed hungry at a time when food is in abundance everywhere. So what does the Islamic tradition say about hunger? The Islamic tradition, fighting hunger is a jihad, a righteous struggle. And this is fought in 4 ways. 1, Islam recognizes food security as a valuable blessing. Islam encourages food work and production. Islam discourages wasteful spending and consumption. Islam considers solidarity towards others an obligation. I will not deal with the causes of hunger, and there are plenty causes, right? And we can be here all day trying to talk about these, but rather I want to focus on the solutions from an Islamic point of view. In the Islamic tradition, food security is a valuable blessing. Islam recognizes the importance of food security and thus deems it a great blessing that Muslims should value, appreciate, and pursue it. Our Prophet Muhammad is reported to have said, "Whoever among you wakes up in the morning, secured in his dwelling, healthy in his body, having his food for the day, then it is as if the whole world has been gathered for him." In the Islamic tradition, work and production is an act of worship. It is reported that the Prophet ﷺ said, "If a Muslim plants a tree or sows seeds and then a bird, a person, or animal eats from it, it is regarded as a charitable gift for him." Productive work is a duty that everyone should get involved in. There is no room in Islam for laziness or unjustified dependence on others. Earning a livelihood is an obligation that Islam encourages, praises, and deems an act of worship. In the prophetic tradition, the best meal is one that is grown with the believer's own hands. The Prophet ﷺ is reported to have said, "Nobody has ever eaten a better meal than that which one has earned by working with one's own hands." So farmers and food growers are thus highly regarded in the Islamic tradition. In the Islamic tradition further, wasteful spending consumption is discouraged. In the wastage is a very serious affair, and in South Africa, 10 million tons of food go to waste every year. That's a third of the 31 million tons produced annually in South Africa. A third of this, fruits, vegetables, and cereals account for 70%. 70% of the wastage and loss primarily throughout the food supply chain, from the plant to plate. The CSIR has valued the loss of this at 61.5 billion rands a year. That's enormous amount of food that's going to waste every year. In Islam, the tradition is Islam does not accept wasteful consumption. That is not to inhibit work or being productive, but rather to guarantee better management of wealth. Instead of overconsumption and wasteful spending on unnecessary stuff, a righteous believer would prefer to invest in developmental projects and beneficial activities that will secure a better life for the community. He deems that as the best investment for him in the hereafter. Now, Islam is very clear. The tradition is very clear around the individual responsibility, the faith person's responsibility towards people who are going hungry. But what is this? What is the role of the state in all of this? Food security, according to the Islamic tradition, is not only the responsibility of the household. The state has duties to fulfill towards its people. A Muslim government is responsible to take at least 3 necessary measures to ensure food security. 1, it needs to analyze the problem and come up with suitable plans and policies as an essential role that the state is responsible for. The state should ensure the basic needs of citizens by adopting policies that encourage work and secure citizens' needs is also an important role of the state. The state should be hard on corruption. Corruption wastes nations' resources and causes negative effects, including the spread of poverty. So making necessary reforms dries up channels of corruption and is an important responsibility of the state. The state should also encourage social cohesion through supporting social solidarity. Solidarity among the community members is one of the strategies that Islam uses to combat hunger. It is not acceptable in Islam that people live below the poverty line while others are spending extravagantly on unnecessary luxuries. Catering for the needs of those underprivileged is a duty and obligation. It is described in the Quran as a right for the needy. It is not a favor on the part of the giver, but an obligation and responsibility he owes to the community. Zakah is one of the oldest forms of social solidarity. It's one of the pillars of Islam that must be collected and distributed among its legal recipients. Zakah is a tax. The first Caliph Abu Bakr, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon him, waged a war against tribes that withhold zakat. It was found to be so important. So it is a right of those who are unable to support themselves and their families and cannot find suitable work to be supported by society in a way that protects their dignity and honor, knowing that they are indeed receiving a right decreed for them by the Almighty. Wealth belongs to the Almighty Creator, and we are trustees who are supposed to distribute it according to the commands of the original owner, the Almighty God. So it's very, very clear that the Islamic tradition is very strong on food security, and you see this tradition being carried out in Muslim communities across South Africa and indeed across the world. In my second part of the of what I've been asked to speak to around climate justice, I want to say that throughout the Islamic tradition, the Quran and the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, there is clear evidence that as humans, it is our duty to care for this earth. Thus, it is our duty to prevent climate change. It's very simple. In Islam, there is a clear call for action against climate change. The evidence of this is in the Quran. In chapter 30, verse 41, Allah Ta'ala says, corruption has appeared throughout the land and sea by reason of what the hands of people have earned. So he may let them taste part of the consequences of what they have done, that perhaps they will return to righteousness. The Quran clearly states that there will be corruption on the physical earth, and this corruption will be done by the hands of the corrupted humans. The verse is clear warning from Allah Almighty that climate change will occur. And indeed, the land and the sea are filled with such corruption today. One may ask, why did it occur? Climate change, the corruption of the land and sea, is a direct result of the corruption of companies and governments who choose profit and power over caring for the environment. When people make this decision that polluting the air or deforesting a forest or paving over the land that feed us to make huge profits, our earth beings begin to die. How can we be among those who are responsible for corruption on earth? However, we have a chance to undo what has happened if we acknowledge the cause of climate change, and it is us. Why do we have to change? Why do we have to stand up against companies and governments who turn a blind eye? The Prophet ﷺ instructs us that the earth is green and beautiful, and God has appointed you as stewards over it. Once again, we have a clear evidence of our role in relation to this world. How can we turn our backs when Allah has made us stewards, caretakers of this earth? He gave us good, beautiful land to live in, and yet we allow it to be poisoned. We must go to the Prophet's example. He was a conservationist, and he said, do not waste water, even if you're on the bank of a flowing river. Do not waste a drop of water, even if you believe there is enough. Do not take long showers. Do not brush your teeth with the tap running. Understand there is a limited amount of resources, such as water on this earth. As people of faith, we have a responsibility to preserve God's earth, and we can no longer play a passive role in the fight against climate change. In the Islamic worldview, calls to make a transition to a sustainable society and economy by adopting responsible development and respecting sustainability principles. This change requires a shift in norms and practices. Religion can become a powerful part of the solution if humans embody a holistic spiritual view towards mankind, earth, and the cosmos. In this way, in 2015 in Istanbul, Muslims from across the world, in its Islamic Declaration for Climate Change, set the framework for an ethical code of conduct to build low emissions, climate resilient future. And the tradition of the Prophet in the Quran, it's clear that we have a duty as citizens of all faiths, because we one big family, we one large family with different tributaries. We all have a responsibility towards addressing climate change, and we can do this in our actions at home, in our families, towards the environment, and towards others in our community. I think this is something that I think I've learned, and that has guided me through the process of building this campaign to protect our farming area. And that's my contribution to today's forum and dialogue. Thank you, Reverend Berry.
That was wonderful. That was so rich, Nazir. Thank you so much. And I think you're exactly the right person to have done that for us. So please do not for 1 second think that anybody else could have done that better. I am particularly touched by some of the things you said regarding For instance, fighting hunger is a jihad. I've never seen it like that, and that's a very powerful statement. And indeed, it is the truth that speaks to my heart. And then also, to work is to pray. What a beautiful, beautiful statement that is as well. To work with I was in a permaculture class the other day, and John and Zira spoke about loving the soil. Just love the soil, he said. And isn't that so true, that when you just love the soil loves you right back and produces for you everything that you need to survive. So thank you so much for that and for being here. And I know that you also were not feeling wonderful last night, so I'm particularly thrilled that we were able to welcome you today. Thank you. So
Thank you.
I want to also just tell you that Gabriel is back in the room. So Gabriel is going to just bring us a summary of what he was saying. And from the Christian perspective, as everybody has been speaking, as Tahir has been speaking, and as you've been speaking, Nazir, I was actually just thinking of the chapter of Leviticus in the Bible that tells us about what it is that we can eat or should eat and should not eat, and how far humanity has come from the sacred instructions that were given to all of our various faiths around how we should work with the food that's been given to us. So that was just a thought that's been coming up. But Gabriel, thank you so much for making your way back to us. And if you can give us now the summary of what you were speaking about from the Christian perspective. Please. Yes, you're here again.
Thank you, Barry, and I'm so sorry to all the participants because of our network here. Our bandwidth, at times when I put on the video, it actually just start playing up. So I'll switch off my video so that maybe it will not do exactly the same thing as happened before. I had made the first part on the definitions, and that I was going to focus mainly on the part on creation, on Genesis, where we are talking of, or where we see the different aspects of creation coming into being, that God prepared for us to have the different parts of creation. As we look at Genesis 1, we would notice that he created the light, which is also an essential part of the environment where food is grown and produced. He created the land and the sea, from which also we gather food. He created the vegetation, which is the basic and primary source of food for animals as well as for the human beings. He also created the fish and the fowl from the water of the sea, so that they will also be part of creation. And when he had done all this, he then put in also the human being and other living creatures on the land, as is written in Genesis 1 verse 24 as well as Genesis 1 verse 27. It goes on to say, or my presentation would then go on to say, God provided food for both men and animals according to Genesis 1 verse 29 and 30, and also as according to Psalms 104 verse 14, which reads, and I'll quote, he causes the grass to grow for the cattle and the herb for the service of men, that he may bring forth food out of the earth. It means God provided that which was enough for men. He made the food available. He made it accessible to men. So from a Christian perspective, this is a position that we would also want to follow, to say food should be made available, meaning we should all work towards the production and sustenance of food production. This is done by making a contribution keeping our environment clean, helping to maintain the status quo as far as the climate is concerned, that which will enable the sustenance of life and the production of food for both animals and human. And also going beyond that, when we are looking at creation as well, we should even look at the plants as part and parcel of the creation that requires to be taken care of, that it will be able to continue in its role of providing food to both men and animals. I would want to quickly then, in my summary, take note of the fact that as Christians, most of the work is done at the congregation level, at the different spaces that we have. And with that, you'd find we would have a variety of interventions as far as the provision or the availability of food is concerned. That is, in our endeavor to have food security, we all work in our different spaces for that. However, we would also find that in the Christian circles, we have the ecumenical movements that have continued to promote the ecological reformation. And I would want also to bring your attention to the Manifesto on Ecological Reformation of All Christian Traditions, which was done in March 2016, which looked at the issues of the celebration of the Week of Creation from the 1st of September, which talked about fasting, meditation, and the spiritual renewal concerning our human responsibility to take care of God's creation. Amongst God's creation is the continued ability for human beings to provide food. And as Christians, we also take upon ourselves the issue of the theology of stewardship, which is the priesthood of all believers, which also goes on to mean the earth-keeping role that we are given according to Genesis 2 verse 15, where God said men should take care of the Garden of Eden and also to look after it. And it is also within the Christian perspective that we should look after the Garden of Eden, which is this earth that we have. Therefore, to ensure that we have food security. And maybe as the last part of my summary, I would also want to call your attention to a study that was made by Mashinini in Gauteng when he was looking at the parables and also making a research into how food is distributed and the food security of the people, the poor people in Gauteng. Mashinini, in his PhD dissertation, where he was looking, which is titled "The Parables of Jesus as a Critique on Food Security System for Vulnerable Households in Urban Township," he says that as part of the kingdom, we should be willing to support others, even with the very little that they have. And also in whatever we have, we should be able to support and share in abundance with those that are in need. He also had the conclusion that all Christians have participated in the exploitation of others in one way or the other. They have taken advantage of the weak and the hungry. And it is a call to all Christians and all people on earth, therefore, to be able to stand and oppose the exploitation as we are looking at the issues of climate change and food security. That would stand with all others and all creation to be able to provide food security for our neighbors and also to provide food security for those that are in need. This would be my summary. I thank you.
Wow, Gabriel, what an absolutely wonderful presentation. Thank you so very, very much. Yeah, that call to oppose exploitation, echoed really, I think both Tahira and Nazir spoke also about the role of corruption in worsening the conditions for our already compromised, poorer communities. And yes, exactly, stewardship. I really love the idea of the theology of stewardship. I was going to ask you what you thought of the theology of dominion, and whether we could sometimes, as faith leaders, be looking differently at our sacred texts. But I do love the idea of your theology of stewardship. So thank you so much, Gabriel. What an awesome, awesome presentation. Really speaking to all of our hearts, the ability to share abundance. Yeah, let us absolutely focus on the abundance that the earth provides, because it is true that when we focus on things, we get more of that. So instead of actually focusing on the poverty and hunger, we should be focusing on the fact that we have abundance and the ability to share our abundance. I really like that, that thought as well. So thank you so much, Gabriel. I'd like to open the floor now to Kate, particularly because I'd like Kate to bring us a little bit more about the Gates letter. And then I would like to tell you a little bit more about our Earthkeeper project that we have on at the moment to celebrate the season of creation. Kate, could I give the floor to you? I'm not hearing anything, but I don't think you're on mute. There we are.
I'm not on mute according to my, can you hear me? Okay, thank you. Thanks. There's a lot of background noise, so I'm plugged in. Thank you so much. Just a little bit of background about the Gates letter. We all know of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which is an enormous organization which provides charitable support for, I mean, one of its policies is that it wants to remove hunger, and it has a huge influence and charitable input in farming processes in Africa. Our letter that SAFSI has produced is really calling on the Gates Foundation to not follow the whole industrial corporate approach to agriculture. So what they're doing is supporting governments and providing GMO seeds and providing support from seed corporations that come in to rural farmers in Africa, encouraging them to grow monocrops, encouraging them to use expensive fertilizers and chemical pesticides in order to produce cash crops. And we know that more than 70% of Africa's food is actually produced by local farmers, small-scale farmers. And we've heard time and time again this morning the importance of ownership, of community ownership of food production, where people take responsibility for their own food production. So this letter is calling on the Gates Foundation to change its approach to support agroecological approaches rather than supporting government and corporate agribusiness to create and greater crop production in Africa. So what they're supporting is largely cash crops. And what people are needing is nutritious food that isn't full of chemicals, that isn't full of pesticides, that people produce and are able to grow for themselves and their communities. And so this letter is not an activist bashing letter, but it is calling on the Gates Foundation to reconsider their approach. And we've sent it from the faith communities because we're not wanting, I know the Gates Foundation is often challenged by advocacy organizations, environmental NGOs. We're not wanting that approach. We're wanting to say we, the faith collective, believe there is a different kind of approach that we need to be tackling food security more sustainably. So our request is that we are getting sign-on from faith leaders from all over Africa to say there is another way and we believe this is a better approach. And the letter aims, firstly, in a way to help faith leaders understand the issues. So it's a learning tool. It's 3 or 4 pages. It's a learning tool to help us understand the issues. And then it's an advocacy approach to the Gates Foundation to say, we as faith leaders call on you to look at your approach and ask that you do this differently. Thanks, Berry. So we'd really love it if you could sign this letter, endorse it, but also share it with your constituencies and encourage other people, other faith-based organizations to do the same. Thank you, Berry.
Kate, thank you so much. And I think that you did an amazing, amazing job of the research and putting that letter together. It's really beautifully done. So the link to that letter is in the chat. So I would seriously invite you to please just look at that link and have a look at that letter, because it really has very, very far-reaching consequences for food security and climate change action in Africa. The other thing, of course, Gabriel did mention the season of creation. And of course, the season of creation is not just for Christians, although it is Christian-based. The season of creation is for everybody, because creation is for everybody. So we are acknowledging the season of creation this year as SAFC by inviting leaders of faith leaders, to show their communities exactly how they are standing up for the earth and modeling the way we treat the earth. So we're inviting you with your religious attire, your religious garments on, to create a little. Oh, good, Mark Maria. I've signed the letter because I commend its reflection of the truth as I understand it of what the African continental need is, vis-a-vis what the Gates Foundation is doing in response, and how the latter could be vastly improved. Thank you, Dr. Mark Maria, for that wonderful comment there. Sorry, just to get back to the Earth Keeper project. So we're inviting you to an Earth Picket, and basically what an Earth Picket is as a faith leader, put on your clerical garments and show us with a particular, just a piece of paper. All you need is a piece of paper, and write on that piece of paper what it is that you are doing. So for instance, mine said, I buy local, because I really do support our local small farmers. I get a box of fresh vegetables every week, and that sustains me completely for the week. And I love getting it fresh from the farm and knowing that I'm supporting a local group of organic farmers as I'm doing that. So I'm not asking for goods to be brought in from far away that have been manufactured and therefore increasing my carbon footprint on the planet. That is one of the things that I am doing, and that's really close to my heart. Tahira spoke about the need to actually take action, and what are we as faith leaders doing to take action? On the 5th of October, we're going to be displaying all of these photographs on social media, and I am going to ask Philippine to just share her screen quickly and show what we're doing. Would you like to do that, Philippine? I'm throwing you in the deep end a little bit.
I'm going to try. My bandwidth is very low. I'm not so sure if I'll be able to, but I have sent 2 pictures on the chat, and I've also sent a link. So just give me a second to see if I can open, if my screen will share successfully.
Thank you.
So I'm just going to try to share the screen now. Can you see this?
Yes, we can. Thank you so much.
Okay, so this video is on our Facebook page as well. If you do want to check, it just explains how the Earth Keeper Picket works. I'm just going to play it. Let me know if you can hear the sound.
is Reverend Barry Burr.
We can hear, thank you.
Hi, my name is Reverend Barry Burr. I'm an interfaith, interspiritual minister. And
Can you hear that?
We can, thank you, Philippine.
Okay, I'm gonna play it, thanks.
I'm the faith leader liaison for SAFC, Southern African Faith Communities Environment Institute. Right now we are in the season of creation. The season of creation starts on the 1st of September every year and goes through for about 6 weeks until the middle of October. It is a time when we think about hope and renewal, we think about new life, it's spring. Life is blossoming all around us, and this earth that supports each and every one of us is showing new life. So we are wanting to celebrate our relationship with all of life, and the way we're doing that is we're inviting you, the faith leaders, to be part of an Earth Picket, and it's a virtual Earth Picket. So the way that works is this. I have created a poster. That's my poster. That's my statement for how I make life better on this planet, how I reduce my carbon footprint, and how I
Okay, I think we've lost you, Philippine. Okay, so I'm going to just stop the screen share. Right. So I think that we saw enough there to just understand what we're doing. So I'm going to invite you to please just WhatsApp or email to me any a photograph of yourself with your poster so that you can participate in our Earth Picket, and we can show all of our respective communities, no matter what your faith is, we are able to really stand up for the earth and to reduce our carbon footprint and do something to assist in the process of fighting climate change. And obviously, in doing that, we really work towards making life better for everybody, and that includes food security. It includes that hunger jihad that Nazir spoke about. I see that we are a little bit later than we hope to be at this time, at this part of our morning session, but I would like to invite anybody to bring forward any other thought that you have right now on anything that has been said, if you'd like to add, and perhaps if you have another voice of another faith that you would like to bring forward. Would anybody like to? I see that Zainab has just asked me also to mention that we have a food gardening workshop which is ongoing for 10 weeks at the moment, and the second week is today, but if you at 12:30, but if you missed this last week's one, we do have it on, we have it recorded for you. I'm not seeing any hands.
Reverend Perry.
Yes, Rev Gwaka.
Yes, actually, I will request that the presentations can be emailed to us, please, because actually they're very much important. Actually, we need to read as well, so that we can also learn about these things as well. Can you do that for us, please?
I can certainly do that. Thank you, Rev. I will make a point to do that. Bishop.
Thank you.
Bishop, I see that your hand was up. Bishop de Groef.
From my own faith tradition, which is a Christian faith tradition, I would say that the importance of the right understanding of the Word of God, going back to Genesis, it turns around that term when man was put in charge of creation. But there's a lot of wrong understanding of that. It doesn't give us the right to exploit, but to till and care. That is the right interpretation. And we cannot see humankind without creation, the two together, which I think is expressed very well in the letter the Pope Francis wrote, Laudato Si, on care for our common home. The two always go together, not the one without the other. Thank you.
Thank you, Bishop. That's a very relevant statement, and yes, I will see if I can actually share that statement. I'll find that statement of Pope Francis and share that as well with the group. That's a very, very beautiful statement to bring, and that interpretation is something that we really all need to be taking clear notice of at this time. Thank you. Anybody else like to bring in a comment? No? Right, I don't, Dr. Mark, did you want to say something?
Yes, something remarkable happened in this last month, and that is for the first time in about 30 years, I've bought a Farmer's Weekly. And what caught my eye was on the front cover, the cost of healthy food slips out of the reach of poor households. And then the lead article is healthy eating is getting more expensive in South Africa. It's entitled. And then in bold, it says to eat properly, a 4-member family household must earn 7,500 Rand per month, assuming 35% of expenditure spent on food. So yes, that's from a agri-business point of view, but I think there is a reality that talks about food insecurity in South Africa, and it's worth the read, and I think it'd be worth tapping into the Bureau for Food and Agricultural Policy Baseline Agricultural Outlook 2020 to 2029, which they refer to and on which this statement has been made. So I think there's some very interesting stuff out there. Thank you.
That is really quite a phenomenal statistic that you've just brought to us. Thank you. Thank you so much for that.
Very good.
Are there any other contributions or statements?
Rev Perry?
So who is
Rev
that?
Perry?
Rev Gopi, how are you?
Gopi.
Yes, Rev Gopi.
I just want to bring in or remind people that in the olden days, our grandfathers were rich in this sense that they were all have planted vegetables in their gardens, big gardens, and then nobody would go hungry because they had this that were made with rich. It was like a basket. You would be, as a child, be sent to the neighbor full of potatoes if we have planted potatoes in our garden, and come back with onion and being sent to another neighbor with another basket of potato, and come back full of cabbage, and being sent to another neighbor with a potato, and come back with green beans and so on. So we had a rondavel, that is a storage, where all these were thrown in. So we were rich because we had everything, although you have only planted potatoes in your garden. But at the end of the day, you had cabbage, you had onions, you had green beans, you had everything, because we were sharing as a nation. And we had that Ubuntu. If we can bring back that Ubuntu of sharing with one another. These days, we would go to fruit and veg and buy a bag of butternut. It will rather rot here in your house instead of sharing with your neighbor 2 butternuts and get back from your neighbor a cabbage and so on and so on. And we all eating the same, as you would rather your butternut must rotten here in the house because you don't want to share with your neighbor.
Yes,
did you hear me?
I did, and that's a profound reminder of the power of sharing and the power of community and the power of Ubuntu. Thank you for bringing that into our consciousness today. I really appreciate that. It's a very valuable comment as well. Thank you so much, Reverend Gopi. I see that Reverend Thomas has his hand up as well. I think this is going to be our last comment before we go on to our draft proposal. Yes, Reverend Thomas.
Thank you very much. I hope everyone can hear me.
We can hear you.
Yes, you see, I think one of the presenters said to work is to pray. Now, I don't think we have captured the power of that statement fully. Because I was just thinking of how many people worship in our different, faith kind of communities. We spend a lot of time talking to God, saying all sorts of wonderful things. Here we are talking about food insecurity, something that needs not just talking, but action. There's the land. There are people, we have the human resources. Why can't we have a kind of, let me use the word aggressive, an aggressive approach towards, let's say, addressing or giving an example of what it means to be or to promote food security, which means really taking these small gardens or translating the small gardens into bigger projects that we can showcase to the world. Because as long as we talk, these powerful people with all the monies, they'll continue to manipulate us. They'll give us the food parcels to hand out to our people, hence promoting laziness. I think if we have got the farms where we can actually say today, maybe after prayers, we go and maybe pull out some weeds or do something on the land so that the people can really say, this is where we get our food from. And it is something that we can pass on to the next generation to work and pray, or to make work part of our praying sessions. Because I think we have a lot of people who pray, but we also have a lot of people who go hungry. But the next time we get the handouts, we think God has answered our prayers, but we are perpetuating the problem instead of solving it. Thank you.
Reverend Thomas, thank you so much. That, you know what you're actually making me think of? You're making me think of the days of conscription where we would send young men to the army. And maybe what we need to be thinking about now is sending young people to farm for a year or 6 months. Maybe that's the kind of thing that we need to be thinking of right now to really help young people to understand the process of life. So it's just a thought. Thank you so much for that. So what I'd like to do is, I did send to those of you that I have on email, I sent a draft resolution. It's just a possibility of what we, as a group of leaders, we could be agreeing in terms of what is it that we agree despite our different faiths. As a collective, what do we agree on in terms of food security and climate change? So I'm going to share my screen now, and hopefully this is going to work. Yes, there we are. Are you able to see that?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. So this is a draft resolution, and I'd really like your input. I'll just read it for you. A just food system in a context of climate change will produce a range of nutritious foods that are accessible and affordable to even the most vulnerable, that will farm animals ethically, that will empower women, and that will restore the health and diversity of life on Earth. We need our agricultural systems to work with and not against nature's diversity. This means supporting farming and food systems that build resilience to climate change and that are socially just. That is taken from SAFC's working document on food security and climate change that was held in November of last year. We, diverse faith leaders who care about the well-being of people, planet, and sustainable living, support the contents of SAFC's open letter to the Gates Foundation of September 2020, We uphold the values and intention expressed in Development Goals 1, 2, 3, 12, 13, and 15 in the context of food security and climate change. Those sustainable development goals are about zero hunger, zero poverty, health and well-being, climate action, sustainable communities, and I think the last one is about sustainable land, working with the land. Our faiths call on us to be compassionate towards all of life, be it human, animal, plant, water, air, or earth. We believe that if we love our earth, she will love us back and provide ample health-giving sustenance for all. We agree that followers of all faiths and none are called upon to be earth keepers and to reject commercial exploitation of seed, soil, animals, and water, which are provided by the divine for the common good. We commit to supporting and promoting these teachings for the benefit of all of life. I am inviting you to make comment and to tell me what you think needs to be changed or added or subtracted, if anything. Can you still hear me?
Yes. Hi, Betty. Can you hear me?
Yes, Tahira, I can hear you. Yes, please. Do comment.
Yes. So I'm just looking at the SDGs there, and you've got the numbers.
Yes.
So I was wondering if it would be a good idea, just under each one, just give the summary of what that one is about. You know, and
so
yeah, just so that it can remind people that that's what's being captured in that paragraph.
Okay, now hunger, and number 3 is health and well-being. Number 12 is, I'm not sure if number 12 or 13 was climate change and the other one was consumption. Wait, I think this is the climate change, climate action. This one was about sustainable consumption. And I'm doing this out of memory, so please, if I will go back and double check that I've got these correct. And this one was, what did I say? Oh, working with the land. Health on land. It was health on land. Okay, are you happy with that?
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you. I just think sometimes we need to be reminded a little bit that those are the actual.
That's absolutely, that's a that's a great comment and great input. Thank you so much.
Can I comment?
Yes, please do comment.
The next line down, I would like to see a reversal of the order. Human, animal, plant, water, earth. I think we begin with the earth and we end with human.
Ah, okay. So you want me to say be it earth, air, water, what? Plant. What's the next one? Animal.
Yes.
Animal, human.
Sorry, I've just lost my spot for a bit. Animal, human. Is that right, Dr.
Yes, yes. Total approval. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, I think that we have to get over the mindset that we as human beings are so important on this planet.
I love that comment. Thank you. Yes.
If I may, Betty.
Yes.
I think I was struck by stewardship very much in the presentation. It does, you know, it does ask of us to work very differently in the way that we treat that which God has created and provided. So I'm wondering, it's just a humble suggestion, is there perhaps room for inserting stewardship?
How about this? This is a, how about that, Harriet?
Maybe we don't put theology because, you know, our statement is broad,
Yeah.
and it also includes people of no faith. So maybe we just try to promote stewardship.
Okay, to promote stewardship of the earth.
Yes.
Do you want me to say of the earth?
Yes, yes, of course. I think that's our concern for now.
Okay. Does that cover it for you?
Yes, 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 yes. But I was very touched by that in the presentation.
Yes, likewise. I really liked that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all from my side. Thank you very much.
Absolute pleasure. Anybody else? Okay. If nobody else has, oops, I'm not quite sure what's happened here, but I'll fix that later. If nobody else has, Bishop de Groot, would you like to, was that a comment or an approval?
No, I just want to, I agree fully with it. I put up my hand. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Bishop. I appreciate that enormously. Right, I'm going to stop sharing the screen now. We are happy with that. And if I could just thank you, Rev Waka, for joining us. I see that you have to leave. If we can please just have thumbs up. If you go down, if you scroll down to the bottom of your screen, you'll see a little smiley face. And if you press that smiley face, you have an option to clap hands, like you'll see the hand clapping across my face, or thumbs up like that. So thumbs up will show us that you are in approval of that. So I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I know that Bishop de Groot already did that. I think we're going to take this as a pretty unanimous vote. So thank you so, so much for your contributions and your participation and your presence here today. I'm really, really thrilled. And I hope that all of you are feeling as enriched as I am right now. Thank you to our speakers, Nazir, Tahira, and Gabriel. What absolutely beautiful contributions you all brought. And thank you for all the hands and voices and hearts that have contributed to our resolution. Our next dialogue is on the 13th of October. We're going to be speaking about animal justice. That's a really important one in our paradigm as well, and in the way we live and are as the human part of creation. So please do diarize that. It'll be from 10 to 12 on the 13th of October. If you are still here, are you still here? Did he leave? I think he had to leave. Could I then please just ask our Buddhist member, Cecil Plykes, to close in prayer for us? Cecil, yeah. Cecil, to unmute. Are you able to unmute? I think you might be struggling to unmute. If you're unable to unmute, I'm wondering if there is somebody else who would like to bring us our closing prayer. What about you, Reverend Gopi?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Please go ahead.
Can we pray? Dear God, we are coming to you this afternoon. We bring thanks for the gathering you have granted us as faith leaders and all the discussion that took place. Give us more wisdom to lead our communities, our province, our land. Give us the strength to give hope to the people that are hopeless, and also give this chat, this group, the wisdom to take lead in topics that are needed in our communities. Bless the discussion that were done today and give us more wisdom to do the things that you have deployed us to do on earth, and give our leadership the knowledge and the wisdom to do the things that are needed in our communities, in also in our organizations. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Reverend Gopi. Thank you, everybody, for your wonderful presence and contributions. Have an enormously successful and happy day further. Is that a waving goodbye, Reverend Thomas, or did you want to say something before you go? You want to say thank you. Thank you so much. Blessings to you all.
Thank you.
Be well. Stay
Thank
safe.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.